Tom. We are back. Game week 3 is over, and we're here to recap everything. We did not do a week 3 preview because you've been traveling, you've been on the road, but you were able to take some time and record the podcast with me. Game week 3 is over. I don't know if you want to start with a little mini recap, and we could start actually with Arsenal because Declan Rice sent off in the second half. They conceded the goal, and people who aren't paying attention, one clean sheet all weekend. It was very good for the teams that are not relying heavily on defense. And if you're invested in Saliba, in Trent, in the Man City defense, it wasn't so good for you. But otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good week, especially from the top attackers. We had Haaland in the captain spot. He, of course, another hat trick, more goals than any other Premier League team. I think probably, though, Liverpool with their three-piece on Sunday probably matched the output of Haaland so far this season, but it's been pretty ridiculous. Where do you want to start with this week and what we're expecting going forward into the international break? And then we'll start up with game week 4 on September 14th.
Yeah, I think firstly, an apology. This one isn't an across the pod. This is the same side of the pod today. We're both in Canada.
Yes, we are.
Different parts of Canada, obviously, but it's quite nice to be on a similar time zone for once, so we're not, waking each other up or anything. I think the first game you mentioned, Arsenal-Brighton, obviously a dodgy red card decision, whichever way you look at it. It's a little bit dicey. You see the Arsenal fans reacting a certain way. You'll see our friend Hub's definitely reacting a certain way.
Yep.
I think it's a difficult one to take, but obviously they've still got a result with the draw. Brighton are looking really strong. I think they've got 2 wins and a draw, so they've started pretty strong, and I think that plays into their next couple of fixtures. Ipswich at home. I think they've got Forest at home or another easy game at home, maybe Bournemouth, which is why I'm definitely starting to look at some Brighton assets. I think the other thing is with obviously Arsenal, like you said, highlighting even they couldn't keep a clean sheet. Obviously they were down to 10 men, but only 1 clean sheet across the whole board of fixtures. And it's something that we said in our very first game week video is, do we just go really light at the back, pick 4.5s, and just maximize the attack? We saw last season and seasons before, the number of clean sheets are coming down every year. So is it something that, we just want to look at and I think you're right in saying people who wildcarded last week have got, Gabriel, Saliba in for this supposedly a home game. They've now got a few tough fixtures. I'm thinking I'm on wildcard this week for my own personal team. Things didn't go so well. Didn't captain Haaland this week, but going to change it up. And I think I'm going to go very light at the back and then just maximize the attack, really. Obviously, the thing is I've had Trent since the start and he hasn't blanked yet. So he's got 3 clean sheets, a couple bonus points. With Nottingham Forest at home next and then Bournemouth at home, I think, I don't know, I'm struggling to take Trent out of the team because he's been performing so well. And obviously, he almost scored in the fixture against who did they play? Oh, obviously United. They absolutely smashed them.
United.
So.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. You brought up Trent, right? So I figured I'd pull up the team, right? We had a pretty good week, 79 points. And as you mentioned, the only team with 3 straight clean sheets. City hasn't been able to do it. They had United, smashed them. It's crazy that Salah, who is, tied for the top point scorer in FPL, is actually the one who denied Trent that goal by that little touch when he was offside. He just didn't want Trent to thrive. But yeah, the 3 straight clean sheets. He's getting some bonus points as well. Should have had a goal. I've loved what I've seen from Trent so far. You and I talked yesterday about my team and maybe getting Trent in there because I've had a bit of a Phil Foden problem and I had to resolve that this week. But I still like having Trent in teams. We did look to make some changes and I'm very excited for that. But I think with where our team is at right now, we're in a really good spot. But going forward, Tom, we did make some changes because there are some price changes that we are expecting. And we brought in Mitoma and we brought in Mbuemo. And I wanted to bring up Mbuemo for one reason and one reason only. He was 3rd on my spreadsheet for potential points. And I was this close to putting him in my team and I didn't. And obviously he was rewarded with 2 goals. In my opinion, Tom, a little bit lucky on those 2 goals. And then, of course, they conceded at the end of the game to ruin my flecking clean sheet. And I was very upset about that. But now they have City and Tottenham. And then you mentioned Arsenal. They also have City and Tottenham. They play Tottenham first, and then they play City after that. So tough fixtures for both teams. But at 7.1 million now after the price increase, how are you feeling about Mbuemo going forward? We put him in the team, but he does have some tough fixtures coming up.
I think it's a frustrating one because we talked about him last week on the watch list, and the reason we avoided him was because of the next 2 fixtures, which are Tottenham away and City away. But if you click the fixtures tab for the next few after, you've got West Ham at home, Wolves at home, Man United away, which we've seen is probably still a good fixture.
Yeah.
Ipswich at home, Fulham away, Bournemouth home. If you look all the way down, I'm happy with keeping him until the 30th of November, that Leicester at home game, and then you probably want to offload him. So if you think you can put him in your team now and leave him till the 30th of November, that's a fire you don't have to deal with. The only issue is you've got City and Spurs away the next two, which he'll probably blank in both, but then start to do well. So for me, I was looking at maybe bringing in my personal team, bringing in someone like Mitoma or Eze for the next two, then switching to Mbuemo. But with the price rises, it's kind of like these players start to get away from you a little bit. I would be surprised if he doesn't rise again to 7.2. And at that point, he's becoming a little bit difficult to kind of jump between players. So I think we brought him in here as just like, Tottenham away, I don't think it's necessarily a bad fixture for him. I think, will Brentford score? Probably. Is he kind of the main guy now? Tony's gone to Al Ahly in Saudi? Probably. So I think I quite like Mbuemo for that. I think City away, this one is going to be the tough one. You can see how Brentford play. They play on the counter-attack and they try and sneak a goal. You could definitely see them scoring against City, but to be honest, I see City keeping a clean sheet this week. So I'm happy with Mbuemo for like the long-term pick, and I'm happy we've got him before the price rise. The players I'm probably more excited about this week that we put in is probably Mitoma against Ipswich. I think Brighton have started to tick a little bit under the new manager. They've got, 2 wins and a draw? Obviously a draw against Arsenal as well, so like playing pretty well. For me, I think they're probably going to win this game 3 or 4-0. I can see a lot of goals in this fixture. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, so that's the main thing here is you have this 2-week stretch where you have Ipswich and Forest at home. Then you kind of want to get out on Mitoma, but I think I'm with you. The price is going to rise, especially with it being the international transfer or the international break. People aren't going to be looking at their teams as closely, and once they realize he's got Ipswich next week or next game week, better said, it's going to probably rise, and especially in this game, you see that Pedro is rising and Welbeck is rising. Mitoma is the one who's a little bit more expensive, but the output could be just as high as both those players, so I was more than happy to get him in before he went up in price. But yeah, Mbuemo and Mitoma were the two switches we made. We took out Bruno Fernandes and we took out Gibbs White, who finally, you came to my side of the pond and you said, you know what, we got to get rid of Gibbs White. We're still holding on to Saka, but I did want to ask you about Saka because I took him out of my personal team. I decided to go away from it. As I mentioned, Tottenham and City, both games are away, but after that, things open up a bit. Leicester, Southampton, Bournemouth, all good matchups. And then another 4 tough fixtures. Liverpool at home, but Newcastle and Chelsea away are going to be tough. Where are you at with Saka right now? I feel like people should consider maybe moving off of him, even if it is for this 7-week stretch, and pivoting to a Palmer who has a much better list of fixtures going forward.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of learnings from the first few game weeks. I think people are focusing a little bit on fixtures, but I think a player like Saka playing in a team which is probably going to challenge for the title is a player who is just fixture proof. I think a lot, if you watch the Arsenal Brighton game, especially before the red card, everything's going through Saka. I think he's kind of the main guy for that stretch after these 2 games as well, when it's like Leicester at home onwards. For those 3 games, people on game week 6 wildcard are going to be bringing in the Arsenal assets. So to take him out, to want to bring him, I guess if you're on wildcard game week 6, if you're going to take him out now, that's fine, but you're probably going to bring him back in. I think he's probably going to have a price drop as well. I think the way the price change is looking like he might go down to 10 million. So it's good to offload and then maybe pick him back up against Leicester at home, Southampton at home, Bournemouth away, even Liverpool at home. You can see Saka being the one that gets a penalty. He's obviously on pens. He scores the pen. He can get an assist because he's on some corners, free kicks, otherwise. So I think Saka is kind of fixture-proof, but I would be looking to sell him if I didn't own maybe Saka, one of Salah or Palmer, just because they've got better fixtures, and I think other people are starting to load up on those assets. And if everyone's jumping off the Saka train this week, it might be a good time to kind of switch him out.
Yeah, exactly. And we decided to keep him, right? This is kind of set in stone, at least for now. But, Eze obviously scored in the matchup this week, which was great to see. Saka should have scored. If anyone, was listening and didn't watch man, he probably had 2 shots. He had one that was wide open. He couldn't quite get enough of a foot on it. And then he had one in the 6-yard box and just couldn't convert. You see the expected goals, 0.95. Yeah. Like, he should have scored for sure. And for someone who pivoted from Foden, who was out yet again, to Odegaard, hoping he could do something, Odegaard set him up really nicely in the box, and he just couldn't quite get it done. I was very frustrated.
And that's the thing with Saka, right? It's kind of like, if he scores there, one of them, and he's on 15-point game. Exactly. Are we looking to take him out? No,
absolutely not.
So I think it's kind of just like, for us, it's kind of, let's just leave him in there. Tottenham away, I can see him scoring. He probably will score. And then City, is obviously a tough fixture, but that's one of the games that if you ever watch them, it either finishes 0-0 or it finishes 2-2, and Saka will be involved in one of Arsenal's goals, and then you've still got him for the good fixture run. So it's kind of like, for us, it's not a fire we necessarily need to put out when there's other areas of the team we definitely needed to sort out first. But if you're on wildcard, I think it's definitely a possibility to take out. I'm definitely going like front heavy on my wildcard, so it's definitely a consideration for me whether to take him out and go with the likes of Salah and Palmer over him, or whether to keep him in, and along with the big man Haaland, who just continues to shine.
Yeah, and I did want to point out, Saka has scored in both games against Tottenham last season, and then as well, right, you look at the fixtures, and both of us being Newcastle fans, we know that they are going to struggle down that right side with Saka. Like, that's one of the weakest points of the defense. Liverpool could easily be a 2-2 game. As good as they've been defensively, they haven't really played anybody too formidable. Say what you want about United. Zirksee probably should have scored. Alisson was unreal in that game to get the clean sheet, and he believe he got bonus points for it as well. So again, they probably should have conceded, didn't. That day will come, but I still think we're fine with Saka. And this is where I think when you talk about Trent, right, Robinson is a guy who could rise. He had another assist, even though Fulham conceded to Ipswich. That was very annoying to not get the clean sheet for Robinson, but assists in back-to-back games was great for us. We'll keep him. We'll obviously keep Trent. We do have a bit of a Lewis Hall problem, but for now, he's okay. He's not starting, which is a bit of an issue, but the fixtures are fine with Wolves and Fulham, so we'll see what happens, but we'll probably need to get him out and for when they play City. And then they have a couple bit of mixed fixtures from there on out. But for now, he's got to stay in the team. We decided to keep him in. Isak as well. Yeah. But how do you feel about Eze? He's someone that, at least for me, I haven't seen enough yet. Thankfully, he scored this week, so it kind of made up for it a little bit. Should have scored against Brentford as well. The free kick was disallowed. But where are you at with Eze? Because he's still only 6'9", so he's actually a pretty good price and a bit of a value to where he was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think for Eze, it's one that you picked him at the start of the season because he's the talisman for Crystal Palace. He's on all free kicks, he's on the pens, everything comes through him. If Crystal Palace had continued to perform like they did the back end of last season, then he would probably have he'd probably be doing even better. The issue is like, if you look at his stats and his figures, like the expected goal involvements for this season, it's still really up there. So all of the models over the next 4 game weeks are predicting Eze to be one of the top scorers in the top 3, along with Saka and Salah. So I think it's for the midfielders, it's Salah, then Saka, then Eze. So I think obviously he's already had a price drop. People like trying to get off him, but with Leicester at home and then Man United home, Everton away.
I mean, how hard is that looking, right? United is, they're not looking so good. Well, Everton's conceding 3 goals in the final 5 minutes of a game to allow 3. It's like, it looks bad on paper, but
can you see him scoring each of the next 3 games? Yes. So it's like, if you've got other areas to fix on, if you're on wildcard, you can take him out. But for us, it's kind of like, we picked him at the start of the season for a reason. Let's just set and forget him. Loads of people transferred him out this week, and look where it got them. Like, they missed out on 10 points. So he got 1 goal, bonus points. That's a 10-point game. It's really easy. So I think that's the same for Leicester at home. He's probably going to score or be some sort of goal involvement there. Everything runs through him. And then you've got Man United at home. He'll probably do something there. And then at that point, we might potentially game wildcard in game week 6, which a lot of people are, and then you can kind of take him out, reassess. But I think for now, we're in a pretty good position with just keeping him.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm very much in on him. I do want to get your read on Jota as well. It was another big game from Luis Diaz and another big game from Salah. Both those guys are heavily transferred. We already saw the price increase for Diaz. He was, those 2 goals. One was really good, and one was a little bit lucky that it didn't go to Szoboszlai, but we'll take it, right, if you have him in the team. Jota, though, do you feel like his involvement was there this week? Because that was one thing that I was surprised about. didn't seem like he got a lot of involvement. A lot ran through Saka. Szoboszlai was obviously unreal for them in the game, even though he didn't get a ton in terms of numbers. And then Diaz was at times playing right in the middle in Jota's spot, and Jota was the one who's playing a little bit out wide. I'm very intrigued by Liverpool because of the fixtures, but it does make me wonder if maybe Jota is a guy that we want to potentially take out at some point. I've been thinking about it on my personal team. I have him in there, but for now he's there, and I may take him out sooner rather than later. But the fixtures just look so good, you kind of have to keep him in the team.
Yeah, I think the thing is all the game week 6 wildcard people are saying keep Liverpool assets until game week 6 and then drop them. But I just think the way Liverpool are playing is they're going to continue to do well. I think there is a question around rotation with Luis Diaz, Gakpo. They bought Chiesa. They've obviously got Nunez. I think Salah just is going to become a 90, be the main man who kind of stays on the pitch for them. So I see Jota's numbers, especially when Diaz is performing well. Maybe Jota's the one that kind of gets rotated at 60 to come off at like 70-minute mark. So I think for Liverpool, it's a tough one. I think for the next 2, if you have him, hold him. But maybe it's one that you look to offload. I really like Luis Diaz as a pick as well, but I know in international break he's going off on to God knows where with Colombia. So it's like he's going to be doing that, coming back on a Thursday or Friday. He probably won't play the next fixture against Forest. So therefore it's like Jota's probably more secure for the next one anyway. So I think keeping Jota in is absolutely fine. Luis Diaz is probably one that if you're going to bring him in now, you want to just be aware that he's probably not even going to play the next week. But it's not a bad one to bring on wildcard. I brought him in on my wildcard just to get the price increases and then maybe offload him if we think he's not going to play. So kind of a win-win if you're on wildcard. And I think the Lewis Hall problem for us at 4.5 at the back, there's a few defenders I'm looking at for the next few weeks. I think Lewis for Man City, we talked about him with the Pep rotation. It's obviously really frustrating. Because we know the second we bring him in, Walker's gonna start to play, especially with City having Champions League games. I think the only saving grace might be if Walker plays right back in the Champions League. Exactly. It opens Lewis up to be the kind of main man in the Prem, which would be really good if you get a Man City asset at defence who's so attacking, like you mentioned before. We were talking like he should have scored multiple this week. Over the last few weeks, he's got an assist. He has clean sheet potential. At 4.6 million to have a Man City defender, if he plays, is unbelievable. I guess that's the key question, and one where we got hit with Lewis Hall when Eddie Howe's decided to play Lloyd Kelly at left back just for some reason. So, a bit of a tough one, but I really like Lewis. The other two I've been looking at is either an Aston Villa defender, because I think they've got a good run of fixtures, also Brighton for the next 2. So I just think if you're on wildcard, those fixtures for Aston Villa look good. Everton at home, Wolves at home, Ipswich away. Even, United at home, you can see them keeping a clean sheet. And then they've got Fulham away, Bournemouth at home. Really good run of 6 fixtures. That if you just have someone like Konsa, set and forget, 4.5 million, might keep a clean sheet every so often. Probably not going to be as involved. There's obviously Digne as well for Aston Villa, who I quite like. But they bought Maatsen for a lot of money, and I don't see him being at the side for too long. It looks like Emery's kind of favouring Digne at the minute, and he obviously got an assist this week, where he's kind of like an FPL folklore player. So he's one where if you don't have him, he does really well and get 15 points, but you bring him in and he'll get a yellow card or get sent off, or he just gets subbed and doesn't actually play. So it's kind of like one of those, like his ceiling is probably just as high as Trent's. He's got assists potential like he did this week. He's got goal threat as well. And clean sheet and a really good Aston Villa defence. So, he is a really high upside player, similar to how we've viewed Lewis Hall. But it's just if he continues to play, that's the main question. So, definitely those. I think Lewis, a Brighton defender like Veltman or Dunk.
Dunk was another one you brought up. It's just like a guy to have who's going to play every game. So you talked about Konsa. He's played 90 minutes every game, right? Which is great. Digne's played, I think, 75 plus minutes in every game, which was good, and we're happy with that. And then, Rico Lewis is a guy that literally, I don't know what it is, Tom, but him and Haaland have a connection because he set up Haaland for goals and Haaland sets up him for goals, but he misses every time. Both last 2 games against Ipswich, he missed, but he did get an assist on that absolute rocket from Haaland for his second goal. Absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, you see the expected goals are there. The assists are there. He's playing up high. He literally plays right next to Haaland. And then I think the crazy part is that when you watch them play, it was De Bruyne who was playing on the wing, crossing it over to that side. And on that side, there was two guys. There was Rico Lewis and Erling Haaland just waiting there for the ball. And they were setting each other up. So that's one of the reasons, being a defender, it's why everyone's going to bring him in the team. And then you talked about Lewis Dunk. He looks pretty good as well. He's going to play every game. Brighton's run of fixtures are good for at least the next two. For a short term, if you kind of have a Band-Aid, he can get some clean sheets, all that stuff. But yeah, Hall is... he is a problem. 20 minutes each of the last two games, coming on as a sub. He's looked okay, but it doesn't seem like he's in favor right now. And the fixtures are kind of mixed for Newcastle, and especially they've looked very shaky defensively. Now, obviously, Dan Burn was the reason they didn't get the clean sheet this week, but Tottenham did have a ton of pressure to where they probably should have scored anyway, so I wasn't really expecting it. Any thoughts on Mazraoui? Because he was a guy who was transferred in early, and in my opinion, we could see Southampton allow a lot of goals to Man United, because while Man United isn't playing overly well, I thought Zirksee had a really good chance to score this weekend, probably should have more than once. And Southampton is just bleeding goals, turning the ball over in their own end. We saw against Newcastle. We saw it twice against Brentford. Two of Mbuemo's goals were because of turnovers in their own defensive end. So I think that if you're looking for a sneaky upside player, and I know we took him out, I think there's a world where Bruno could be very good at 8-4 if you're looking for a cheaper pivot option who will increase in price almost immediately after a big game week. And you really could keep these guys in the team even through the Villa game, because the fixtures are good. You have one bad one. Spurs is at least at home. They're probably going to concede a goal or two there. But outside of that, I think the rest are pretty solid and all pretty good fixtures. This is another guy at 4 or 5 I'd be considering as well. And I did want to bring up Mykolenko as a cheap option. I was telling you, once you get past this Villa game, the fixtures are just ridiculous. And you have, almost a 10 or so week run all the way until December when, yes, Everton has been awful and they probably still will concede goals at times, but it gets a lot better for them going forward. And at 4-4, if you want to save, 0.1, he is another option as well that you could look at.
Yeah, I know. I really like both those picks, and I both think they're both pretty set in terms of playing 90 minutes every week in a good run of fixtures for both. So I quite like both of those. I think Mazraoui as well will increase in price over the next couple of days. So if you want to get him, you kind of have to act quite quickly. And you can see Man United are under a lot of pressure at the minute. There's the reason I'm kind of avoiding their assets, but. He's got an assist already in one of the first few games. They've got Southampton away, Crystal Palace away, Spurs. You can see a clean sheet in amongst there if they continue, because they seem quite compact and play quite well. I think it's more the attacking side United are struggling with. Defensively, I actually think they've looked a lot better. I really like the Lit. I really like Mazraoui. I think they're playing quite well defensively. So I think it's definitely a good option, and you don't have to worry about rotation, that kind of thing. You can kind of put him in. And I think Mykolenko, the interesting thing with him is on wildcard, or if you're looking just for a really cheap option to get into the Everton fence, you've got Michael Keane as well at only 4 million. So you can get one of your sub-defender spots as Michael Keane and kind of rotate him in and out. He's played, the last 90 minutes. Obviously, it's not gone so well, so they might look to change it up. But I think with that run of fixtures, it's not a bad one if you want to have a different defender just to kind of rotate in and out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at our team, right? We got to do something with Barco at some point, right? And Keane could be a great pivot option for that. But outside of that, I think, it's very difficult. I'm fine starting Harwood Belize in a pinch, and that's where, we have that Lewis Hall problem. Do we start him? Do we start Harwood Belize, who's going to play every game, who's 4 million? We just didn't have the transfers this week to really make a Barco or Fraser switch. Those guys were just chilling right now. We're going to wait on them. We know who our starters are. But is there anybody else you wanted to talk about, especially up top? We haven't talked about any forwards yet, because especially for our team, at least, it's kind of set right now. Solanke, we're waiting to come back. I believe Wood scored this week, didn't he? Yes, he did. And he was another guy who was pretty highly touted as a cheaper option. But we talked about Pedro and Welbeck being heavily transferred. Watkins, though, disappointing so far, Tom, but the run of fixtures is looking a lot better for Villa going forward.
Yeah, I think Watkins is just an easy one to talk about. It's let's just leave him out for now. He got subbed at 60 minutes. I think Rodgers is a really good option for Aston Villa if you want to, get into that 5 million. It's kind of if you had the choice between the two, you'd probably pick Rodgers at 90 minutes. So we can forget about Watkins. I think Welbeck's probably more of an avoid than Joao Pedro because they've got Rutter and Ferguson back from injury as well. And I think the new manager from the young German likes Joao Pedro as the 10 role. So I think you'll see Welbeck being rotated further forward. So I really like Joao Pedro. He's already gone up to 5.7. I think he'll probably increase again to 5.8 at some point. So quite a good enabler if you want to just like put him as a striker and forget about him, put him alongside Haaland, especially if you want to get off Isak, is a good option this week after Isak kind of returned, but Newcastle not playing that well up front. It's kind of like, do you just pick a Joao Pedro and put the money elsewhere, bring in a Palmer, etc. So I quite like the idea of Joao Pedro.
Yeah, you know, like you said, 5.7 for him and Welbeck right now. You know, Jackson scored again. He's been all right. The price, I don't know if I love it, but again, I wanted to talk about the Chelsea run of fixtures, like 4 straight, really, really good ones. The Liverpool one could be very high scoring as well. Arsenal's going to be tough, but I'm not taking Jackson. I'm a Palmer man myself, but yeah, that was one that I did think about. And then my dark horse is Zirksee. Honestly, it's not that I like him, but I think he's in a really good spot to score a lot of points. And I think to your point, there is a lot of pressure on United. They started Zirksee, they started De Ligt this week, and it's because it's not really working. And Garnacho was the other one who started finally. And we are expecting to see a lot from Garnacho at some point.
Yeah.
We'll see, because he hasn't been starting. He's starting now. Hopefully he continues to. But yeah, at least for me, those are the guys I'd be looking at. We talked about, you know, we could see 4 goals from Brighton this week at Ipswich. It could be really, really bad. I'm with you on Pedro. He would be my pick between him and Welbeck. We haven't talked about Havertz. I don't think we need to, but I'm still in on Isak. I'm going to ride or die with Isak. But there is a world where that pivot down could be very useful, because the fixtures are kind of mixed. It's not anything crazy, but I still like him a lot. But you do see him and Gordon are 2 of the most popular transferred players out of the team this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you've kind of summed it up when I say your ball knowledge is unbelievable. I think the main one that I want to talk about that you mentioned that I actually really like is Nicolas Jackson. I think their run of fixtures is just really good. Their main issue with Chelsea is just the absolute clusterfuck of the squad. Like, what's good? They signed Sancho as well now at the last minute. So it's kind of like, who's playing behind? Is it Madueke? Is it Neto? Is it Nkunku? Is it Felix? Is it, you know, so who really knows? I think the one spot that is locked down is Palmer now playing centrally. Chelsea starting to tick, so he's going to play 90 minutes in that cam role. Jackson, I think I saw, I don't know how true this is, but I saw that they're going to extend his contract to 2033.
Yeah,
so it's just like,
I don't know what that is. Like, they already have the most money allocated in contracts by like a mile, and he just got an extension for the next 6 seasons.
So it's just crazy. But I think there's just a position they didn't really sign. I don't see Felix and Nkunku. They can play that role, but I think Jackson's kind of locked as a striker. With those fixtures, scored again this week, scored last week, got an assist last week. For me, I think if you want a Chelsea attacker, Palmer's the best, but Jackson's definitely a good route in if you want to. If you don't have the money for Palmer. And I don't hate the idea of bringing in a Chelsea defender like Colwill, Cucurella, or even Sanchez, the goalkeeper, for that run of fixtures. I know like they haven't necessarily been, you know, really secure defensively, but I think going forward for that run of fixtures, it's not really a bad set and forget 4.5 in like Colwill and just let him play every week. I think they'll probably improve defensively because like they've kind of got their defense locked down on who they want to play. It's more just those attacking slots that is a bit more up in the air.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we talked about it a little bit, I believe more off camera than on camera, but Chelsea's a team that if you can figure them out, you can actually do quite well. The problem is figuring them out. You know, you talked about you're kind of willing to die on the Nkunku train, and he's basically he's already at 6'3", down from 6'5", and he continues to go down because he's not playing. Seems like Felix is more the guy, you know, Madueke, who came off the hat trick, which was just like one of the most ridiculous hat tricks I've ever seen. The same goal 3 times in the same game is terrible, terrible defending from Wolves.
Good for Palmer,
it is what it is. Yeah. But yeah, I do like the idea of a Chelsea defender. Again, the run of fixtures is really good. We talked about some other guys who are in a good spot, but I think that Chelsea is a team that, you know, we love to hate them because they're a bit of a disaster, but if they figure it out, we can't be shocked either, because there's a lot of talent on this team, and a lot of good things come from it. You know, where are you at, though, heading forward with this team? What do you think is our next move we have to make, and what should we be looking out for?
Yeah, it's a move that I've been thinking about, and I'm semi-tempted to even make it now. It's just to move Lewis Hall to Rico Lewis.
Ooh,
And it's a
okay.
4-point hit, but I can see Lewis getting a assist and a clean sheet at 10-point, and then we've got the price rise, which is probably going to happen tonight, and we're kind of locked in on him going forward. I think Harwood Bellis will probably play. He started and got 55 minutes, which is a bit of a worry as well. So we don't even have cover for Lewis Hall. So it's kind of like do we just go with a 1 point this week with Lewis Hall coming on as a sub, or do we take a 4-point hit? But if you think about it, we're going to get a player who's going to start and has potential to return. So for me, I'd probably move Hall to Rico Lewis if we think Rico Lewis is going to start with City against Brentford. I'm hoping so, but it would be classic if we take Rico Lewis in for a 4-point hit and then he doesn't even play. But it's one that I've been definitely thinking about for this team.
Yeah, I mean, so here's my question. My question to you is: would you want to actually take Barco out instead and keep all 5 as potential options? Because I don't think Hall's going to go down in price. Harwood Bellis obviously can't go down in price.
They can.
Can they still go below 4 mil?
They can go down to 3.9, and some of them are looking to go down to 3.9, which for future is good to bring in because you kind of gain a 0.1 on your attacking slots if you can bring in a 3.9 defender. So
because my only contention with Hall is we are in a tough spot. And to be fair, I made this exact switch in my team. I said, you know what? I'm eating the 4 points. I'm getting him out of the team. But I was kind of set on Mykolenko, Robinson, and Rico Lewis with Harwood Bellis as my if I need him kind of guy. And we're kind of doing the same thing here. Very similar strategy. But the only reason why I would consider not doing it in this team potentially is we do have 1.3 million. So we could even go higher than Lewis if we wanted to. But then there is also the potential for Hall to play and start against Wolves. It does seem a little bit unlikely today, but at least the fixture is good if we kept him. But where are you at? Do you want to make this move now? Because we can make the move. I'm all for it. I've done it before. I made the move. I bit the bullet. Are you ready to bite the bullet and eat those 4 points on this team?
I think if you look at this team, we've only got 2 starting defenders this week. So we need to bring in a defender. So for me, I think leave Barco and Bellis because they're 4.0 defenders. We don't need to put out that fire. Lewis Hall's definitely going. The players that we've mentioned, I all quite like. I like Dunk. I like Digne. I like... Who else do I like? I like Konate if we want to double up on the Liverpool defence. They're the only team that got a clean sheet this week. We could have Konate and Trent in for the 2 home fixtures that are really good. But also I do like Lewis. I've got a soft spot for him. I think if we're going to bring him in, we get the price rise. He probably will go up and potentially go up again. If he continues to play, I think Lewis is the best value at that price point. So I'd be tempted to make that transfer. But obviously,
that's all I had to hear. That's all I had to hear. I was on him last week. I said we got to get Rico Lewis. He got an assist, and we didn't mess it up. But you just look at this team, Tom. Lewis, Trent, Robinson in defense, Eze, Saka, Jota, Mitoma, Mbuemo, Haaland, Isak. Set it, forget it. And I think the bigger thing for me is that Lewis is a guy that I'm very comfortable starting whenever he plays. And if he doesn't play, I have Harwood Bellis as another option. It's only if he's not starting multiple games that I'm really worried about having him in the team. And as you mentioned, the price rise, right now he's 4.6. He seems on track to go to 4.7 by the end of today. So I'm all for it. City's not going to keep this run of crappy goals and allowing Ruben Diaz knocking it off his leg, going in the net. Like, they aren't really conceding crazy goals. It's just stupid stuff that keeps happening, and they're not getting these clean sheets, which is why Gavardio keeps getting transferred out. But Lewis, at the price he is, basically playing center mid, is phenomenal value for the
less
team.
Risk. Yeah, exactly. Much less risk. And I think that team looks really pretty solid right now. The only things I'm thinking is we've kind of got Jota and Trent from Liverpool for the next 2 fixtures, which is really good. I don't think Diaz will be, if he does play, he might be tight. I think they're probably going to be the main people along with Salah for the next fixtures. So for me, the main worry for this team is no Palmer, no Salah.
Yeah.
But it's something which we can reassess in Game Week 6 if we want a wild card. I think from Game Week 6, a lot of people are going to drop Trent, are going to drop Jota, are going to drop Luis Diaz, are going to drop all of Liverpool assets like Salah. So I think we just eat up the next 2 fixtures of Salah maybe doing well. And at that point on, we reassess if we want a wild card in Game Week 6. But I think we're in a really nice position with Mitoma for this week. I think Mbuemo is a set him to get longer term. We've got his price rise as well.
Yep.
I think Eze is going to do well this week. So I think there's a lot of point potential in this team for this week, especially to just like keep it ticking along. We're in a nice spot. We're performing above average every week. There's no point to like hit the panic button. We're only 3 game weeks in. I'm seeing a lot of chat around, people. I mean, I'm even wildcarding my own team, but it's definitely needed. But for our team, if it's not needed, don't get caught up in the hype of everyone else wildcarding. Definitely good for us to save it till game week 6 or game week 12. People looking at fixture swings down the line. If we can kind of keep it that long, I think it plays in our favour with a lot more information at play. And, if there are certain injuries and etc., we'll be in a much better position to use it when there's a lot more fires to put out than this week. And I think we did, one reflection is what we did really well is we rolled 2 weeks of transfers, which meant we could make 3 subs here for only 4 points. So that's just the benefit of like not reacting and not, making those changes as they come in, because we probably would have brought in other players who didn't necessarily, we might have taken out Eze, for instance, who scored this week. So I think we're doing like very well level-headed in this one. Maybe on our personal teams we're not doing quite as well. But I think for this one, this is kind of like, we're definitely in a good position. I'm definitely enjoying doing it with you, JRich.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, the biggest thing for me, right, is just to continue to follow your advice and continue to keep a level head, because the one thing you told me when we started this is that there is no way in hell we want the big man with the big boots not as our captain every single week. And what do you know? Back-to-back Hatties will definitely help out the team. No matter if Bruno Fernandes is terrible, no matter if Gibbs White isn't performing, we got the main man and he's scoring each and every week. And I think it's definitely paying dividends. Trent has been great for us as well. So definitely want to give you a shout out for that. But I think adding Rico Lewis is great for the upside. And like we talked about, Mitoma and Brighton should crush this week. And I really like Mbuemo. I think he got a little lucky, so we'll see how it works out. And that was why I was hesitant to put him in my own personal team. But outside of that, very happy with where we're at. Do you have any final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, loving it. Thank you, JRich. Beautiful show again. Lovely to be on the same side of the pond as you this week. But let's keep in touch. Let's keep tracking those price changes. Enjoy the international break, but I'm sure we'll bring out some more content in the meantime.
Oh, yeah. We'll have a Game Week 4 preview coming up. So we did a review for Game Week 3. Preview of Week 4 will be coming up probably in the next week or so. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and check out the podcast feed as well. For Tom and myself, we are out, but we'll be back for Game Week 4. Peace.